Hello everyone, this is a worksheet, a long worksheet on solving linear equations. So we are going to get right to it. At any point, if you want to try these problems, write it down, pause the video, and then just take a look at how we arrived at the answers. So when you have variables on both sides, we have variables on both sides of the equal sign. We typically say this is a wall, and we are going to try to get the smaller variable over to the larger variable. So you would subtract 2p on each side. Remember, you cannot solve an equation with variables on both sides. So once that happens, this cancels. And you see what happens there is that you have 3p, which the variable is now on one side, equals 20. 3p minus 1 equals 20. That is a two-step equation. Now you would just go ahead and use inverse operations to start to isolate that variable. Now that the variable is on that one side, now you would isolate the variable and you would cancel out the ones. You have 3p equals 21. And then opposite of multiplication is division. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and p equals 7. And your answer would be choice 4. And on to number 2. So this one, again, we have variables on both sides. Try to bring the smaller variable over to the larger. The smaller coefficient is the negative 4x. So I'm going to add 4x. The reason why I'm not dividing there is because I don't want to break up the 4 and the x. I don't want to break it up just yet. So I draw my line and I cancel the negative 4 and the 4. 5 comes down. Negative 2x plus 4x is positive 2x. Just be careful with that. And then the equal sign comes down, and also that negative 7, you see it? That comes down as well. So I'm going to say, all right, see this 5? I need to bring it over to the other side. I have a minus 5 on this side because that's a positive 5, and the opposite of positive is negative, and this would cancel. Before I cancel that, I'm going to draw another big line, and this cancels. So now you have 2x, and just be careful, negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12. Alright, use your calculator if you need. And then you divide by 2 on both sides, divide by 2 on both sides, x equals negative 6, and you isolated the variable. You used division to do it because that is multiplication, and 4 is your answer. For number 3, again now, so we have parentheses, and remember, you can't use order of operations right now because there's a variable inside. You don't know what the value of x is. So every single time you solve an equation with the parentheses, you have to use distributive property to get rid of them. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. I'm going to bring down that one step. I'm going to bring down the plus 7, and I'm going to bring down the equal sign and the 3. Now, any time that you have 3 terms on one side, that means most likely you can combine like terms. And there is something here that there's 2 terms here on this left side of the equal sign that you can combine. And if you see it, take a look. You have negative 8x right here, and you have a positive 7 right here. Before you start moving things across the equal sign, remember, just combine the like terms. Negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1, and look, it comes out to be a nice two-step equation. Now you go along, and the opposite of plus 1, the opposite of minus 1 is plus 1, and I am going to go 2x. This cancels, equals 4. And as soon as that happens, that's a one-step equation. You divide by the coefficient, which is next to the variable, and x equals 8. Sorry, 2. Just joking. Okay, so now we have distributive property on both sides. We have parentheses that we need to get rid of. I'm going to draw my little loops there and do 2 times x, which is 2x, and 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8. 4 times 2x is 8x, and 4 times 1 is obviously 4. You see now that you have variables on both sides. You get rid of the parentheses. Now you are going to subtract the 2x on both sides, bringing the smaller variable over to the larger at all times. So after that, you know that this cancels, and you bring down that negative 8. 8x minus 2x is 6x. And you still, now getting the variables together, you see how easy it is now? This is a two-step equation. As soon as this is a two-step equation, you know that you have to go for that 4 and bring it over to the other side. The only way to do that is opposite, inverse operation of positive 4, that is negative 4. And that means this would cancel, and negative 4, negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12. Bring down that 6x, and you divide by 6 on both sides. Dividing by 6 on both sides, x equals negative 2. And 1 is your answer. For number 5, distributive property again, we are going to do that distributive property. This is 4x. We have to get rid of those parentheses, plus 20. So, and we bring down the 12x, we bring down the equal sign. Remember now, just get the x's together. Bringing the smaller over to the larger will help you work in the positive, which is what we want to do if we can do it, and we can here. So 12x minus 4x is 8x, and you bring the equal sign down, you bring the 20 down, you divide by 8 on both sides, and I am going to bring up my calculator right here, and I'm going to clear it out, and we're going to just do 20 divided by 8, and hopefully get 2.5, and 2.5 is there as an answer, so 4 is your answer. So x equals 2.5, and we're good there to go. All right, so we have number 6, and we do have distributive property, but I want to make sure that you understand that this is a negative 3 that you are distributing, and that makes all the difference. So if we're going to distribute that negative 3, I'm going to just put the 15x down here, and this is negative 3 times a positive 3, that is negative 9x. And negative 3 times a positive 4 is negative 12. Just be careful with that, because when you're distributing a negative, what it does is that it changes all the signs of everything inside the parentheses. So we have three terms. You see how we have three terms on that left side? We have to combine like terms, and that like terms are right here. 15x minus 9x, and that is 6x. Once you combine like terms, just bring everything else down, reset, and now you can just go ahead and isolate the variable using inverse operations. You add 12 on both sides, and you would have this cancel. You get 6x equals 18, and you divide by 6 on both sides, and x equals 3. Be careful when you're distributing a negative. All right, so that is just changing all of those signs throughout. So do you know that number 7 already starts out with 3 terms on that left side? That means you have to do something like combine like terms before you even start. The like terms are right here. 3y minus 5y, that is negative 2y. And I'm going to bring down the plus 10 and the equal sign and the 36. Once this is set up, you just have a two-step equation that you are going to subtract 10 on both sides, and you bring down the negative 2y, and 36 minus 10 is 26. You divide by the number that is next to the variable. You do not change the sign. Y equals negative 13 is your answer, and number 1 is your answer. Number 8, this one, a little bit of trouble here. So if 2x plus 5 equals negative 25 and negative 3m minus 6 equals 48, what is the product of x and m? So you're going to solve for x for this equation, and you're going to solve for m for this equation. So I split them up. This is 2x plus 5 equals negative 25. I subtracted 5 on both sides. I get 2x equals negative 30. And 2x equals negative 30. The last step, that's a one-step equation, and that last step is to divide by 2 on both sides. X equals negative 15. So we have the x part, but now we need the m. So we add 6 to both sides, and we cancel the 6's out, and we have 48 plus 6, which is 54, and we divide by the negative 3 on both sides, and m equals negative 18. So now we have to take negative 15. We want the product, right? So the product is the answer of a multiplication. And negative 15 times negative 18, use your calculator, that is 270. And it's positive, negative times negative. All right? Number 9, back to pretty easy question here. Remember distributive property. We have 2 times x. This is not a negative, so it's really easy. And 2 times 3 is 6. I'm going to bring down the x plus 10, and now I am going to bring the smaller x over to the larger. All right, and we are going to minus x on both sides. Once you minus x on both sides, the x's cancel on that right side, and 2x minus 1x is 6. Yes, that is a 1x, and then equals 10. So you subtract 6. This is a single step equation. You subtract 6 on both sides, and now that cancels. The 6's cancel, and you get x equals 4. And it doesn't get any easier than that. and the choice is 4. Okay. Again, another problem with distributive property that we have to get rid of, those parentheses. And we are going to get the smaller x over to the larger x. The x's, once those variables are on opposite sides, you must get them together on one side. Please do not add the 6 or deal with the 6's until you have those variables on one side together. And this is the reason why, is because as soon as you do that, you could see that you have a nice easy equation to solve. So you would have, adding 6, you would add 6 to each side, and x equals, this cancels out, x equals 12. And that is choice 3. Perfect. So here we go again with distributive property. You have those loops, just make those loops, it'll just be easier for you. 2x minus 6, right, because 2 times negative 3 is a negative. Then I'm going to bring down the 1, and I have the 19. You notice now that on the left side we have 3 terms. We have 3 terms. That means there's 2 of them that you can combine. So the combining the like terms is very important before you start moving things across an equal sign. You have 2x, and then the like terms are negative 6 plus 1, which is negative 5. So you're combining these 2 terms. Equals 19. And then look, once you combine those 2 terms, you have a 2-step equation that is very easy to solve. You add 5 on both sides. You're showing all of this work, not skipping any steps. You realign those, you reset your equation. Once you take that one step or make a step, you reset the equation. It is 2x equals 24. And then finally, this is a one-step equation, and you are dividing by 2 on each side. B2 cancels, and you get 24 divided by 2 is 12, and 4 is your answer. Number 12. Let me move my face. All right. So what is the solution for the equation x plus 1 equals x plus 2? Wow. So I am just going to tell you, just go ahead and solve it, right? You get the x's together, so you minus x on both sides, and look what happens. Okay, so this cancels, and so does this. You get 1 equals 2. Does it? No, it doesn't. So there is no solution for this. When there's no variable, the variables cancel out, and you have 1 does not equal 2, that means there is no solution. And it could be anything. So if it's 10 does not equal 12, or 15 does not equal 16, there is no solution for this equation. Now, just it makes sense, because look, if you have x plus 1, right, just say any number for x, and then that same number plus 2, it can't be equal to each other. There is no number that you could put in for x and then substitute into both sides to make that equal. So it's never going to have a solution. It's impossible. You can't add 1 to one number and then take that same number, add 2 to it, and say they're ever going to be equal. So this question, number 13, a little bit tricky. So let's read it. If negative 2x plus 3 equals 7 and 3x plus 1 equals 5 plus y, the value of y is. All right, so first off, you can't look at this. See this? You can't solve an equation with 2 different variables. You can't do it. But you could solve it if you solve this one for x first, and then substitute the x in here, and then solve for y. So that's what we're going to do. So I wrote down the 2x plus 3 equals 7. I need a value for x to plug into here, to substitute into there. Shouldn't say plug in. But this cancels. You have negative 2x. And let's see what 7 minus 3, 4. And let's see what this comes to. You divide by negative 2. You divide by negative 2. And you get x equals negative 2. Okay, so now we take this x, and substitute it into here. So what I did here is just to copy this down right here. And look, instead of the x, I put this, because x 3 times x, that's multiplication, that operation. So I'm going to put my x here. My x is negative 2, so I'm going to put it right there. And I'm going to do 3 times negative 2, which is negative 6. And I'm going to bring down that plus 1. And I am going to do 5 plus y. Bring that down. Right? So now I have 2 terms here that are like terms that I can combine. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. And equals 5 plus y. Now you just have to isolate that y by subtracting 5 on both sides, and you finally get your answer. So this cancels because 5 and negative 5 equals 0, and you have a negative 10 equals y. And your final answer is 3 here. And that's how you do that problem. Back to like a distributive property on the left side, you're going to distribute, and you get 10x minus 35 equals 15x minus 10. I have variables on both sides of the equation. So I'm going to bring the smaller coefficient variable over to the larger. Yeah. This cancels. You get negative 35 equals positive 5x. Now this is a 2-step equation that I just have to solve and add 10 on both sides. When I add 10 to both sides, I get negative 25 equals, and then the 5x, and then you would divide by 5 on both sides, opposite of multiplication, and the 5's cancel. Remember, you always divide by the number that is next to the variable. You have negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5. And 3 would be your answer. Number 15, it gets a little bit more difficult. So we are going to just distribute this negative 2. Yes, it is a negative 2. And you have 13x minus 2x minus 8. Because negative 2 times positive 4 is a negative 8. And then just bring down 8x plus 1. Do you see that left-hand side? Look at the left-hand side. You have 3 terms. You have to combine like terms first. So we have 13x minus 2x, and 13x minus 2x is 11x. And we're going to bring down the minus 8, and we're going to bring down the equal sign, and we're just not going to do anything else until we reset the equation. So, bring the smaller x over to the larger x. Each side has 2 terms. You see that? Now you can combine the like terms, the x's, but the x's are on opposite sides. So you can't just add them. You have to use inverse operations to pass any equal sign. This cancels. We get 11x minus 8x is 3x. Minus 8 equals 1. You add 8 on both sides, and we are coming to the end of this problem because that was a two-step equation and you are canceling the 8's, and you have 3x equals 9. And finally, last step, divide by 3 on both sides, and x equals 3. All right, that's that problem. You could do that problem, you could do pretty much any problem. So now we have distributive property here again. You're distributing that 2 across. So we have 6p minus 8 equals 10. After you do distributive property, you add 8 on both sides. You get 6p equals 18. And then you know that that is a single step equation, and you're dividing by 6, the number that is next to the variable, and you get p equals 3. P equals 3 just happens to be choice 3. All right, so just another equation with variables on opposite sides. Don't get confused. This right here is the smaller coefficient, and now we're going to just add n to both sides. We have 4n minus 8 equals 32. You're going to add 8 on both sides using inverse operations. And once you are finished with that, the 8's cancel and 4n comes down and is equal to 32 plus 8, which is 40. One-step equation, divide by whatever is next to that variable, and we have 4's that cancel, n equals 10. And it's a positive 10, so that's just choice 4. Number 18, again with distributive property. So we have, after distributive property, you have 6x minus 12 equals 36 minus 10x. You bring the smaller variable over to the larger variable all the time. Try to, at least. You have 10x here, plus 10x, and plus 10x. Because negative 10x, you want to work in the positive. So you want to get those x's together first before you do anything else. The 10x's cancel on that side, on the right side, and this becomes 16x minus 12. Bring everything down. Don't skip steps. And that equals 36. Once you add 12 on both sides, this is a two-step equation. So now you're adding 12 because, again, you want to isolate the variable. This cancels. You add 12. What you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other. And that equals 48. 36 plus 12. You divide by 16, which is the number next to the variable, and you have x equals 3. And just happens to be choice 3. Number 19, very simple question. You subtract 4p on both sides. You get 4p plus 2 equals, just be careful, equals a negative 10. And then you subtract. Remember, bring down that negative 10. It is, I know it's a minus, but you have to just remember, the sign before the number is the sign of the number. This cancels. You have 4p equals negative 12. And now you're going to divide and finally get your answer. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. And p equals negative 3. And that's choice 4. Nice easy question there. Easy question here. You have minus, so this is a two-step equation right off the bat, so I'm just going to minus 5. Don't rearrange it. Don't change it from the way it is. Just work on it the way you do. Follow all the rules of inverse operations, and you have to isolate that variable. So you're just going to subtract 5 on both sides. You get negative 3x equals negative 12, because negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12. Then you just go and divide by negative 3 on both sides, and you get x equals 4. And it's not negative 4 because it's negative divided by a negative, and that is positive. So that is 4. On to the next one. Again, with distributive property, just be careful on this side right here. This is a negative that's being distributed. So I'm just going to distribute 3 times x, which is 3x, and 3 times 2, which is 6. So I'm going to distribute that first. And then I am going to distribute negative 2 times x, which is negative 2x. And so we have negative 2 times x, and negative 2 times positive 1 is a negative 2. Just be careful when you're distributing. There's 4 terms over here now. So that means you have a lot to combine, and they're all on one side of the equal sign. Remember? So we have 3x minus 2x is x. And then I'm going to switch my color here, and then see this positive 6 and this negative 2. That can be combined. So 6 minus 2 equals a positive 4. Equals 8. So look at that. Combine like terms, and now you have a single step equation that you subtract 4 on both sides. X equals 4, and that was there's a lot of steps, but the thing is you can't start moving things across the equal sign without a plan. The plan is that if there is more than 2 terms on one side of the equal sign, you have to combine like terms. So one of the trickiest things for all students and all people here is to actually have this minus sign in front of the parentheses without a number there, right? But I'm going to put a number in. It's never written, but it's always written like what you see. This is like Regent's problem. So we really have a 1 here, but they're not going to write the 1. So if you see a minus sign before the parentheses, it means to distribute the negative. I'm going to say distribute the negative, but it's really like a negative 1, which makes no difference, right? So which makes no difference between saying distribute the negative. It means distribute negative 1. But distributing a negative changes all of the signs within of the terms within the parentheses. So this right here, I'm just going to bring down the 2m. That's the first step. And you see this negative times a positive m? That changes the positive m to a negative m. And you see this negative times a positive 1? That changes the positive 1 to a negative 1. Right? So anytime you distribute a negative, you are changing the signs of the terms inside that parentheses. So now we have 3 terms on the left side of the parentheses, and you have to combine like terms. The 2m minus m minus 1m becomes m. And I'm going to bring down the minus 1 and the equal sign and the 0. So I am going to use inverse operations to add 1 on both sides, and so we have our answer. We cancel out the negative 1 and positive 1, and m equals 1. And just so happens to be choice number 1. Number 23, lot to read here, lot to unpack. So Debbie solved the linear equation. 3 times the sum of x plus 4 minus 2 equals 16 as follows. She made an error, so that they're trying to figure out the error here. So line 1 is just the equation. So I'm just going to do like what I would do is distributive property. So the next thing, well, she didn't do distributive property. I'm looking at this right being right here. So she did this. I would do distributive property first, but okay, so she didn't do that, but that's fine. That's okay. We have 3x plus 4 and equals 18. And that's what she has for line 2. And you notice she didn't make an error between 1 and 2, so we can cancel that out. The next step she would have to do is distributive property. So 3x and 3 times 4 is 12. And I would bring down that equals 18, and that would be your next line. Wait a minute, line 3, incorrect. She did 3 times x, and then 3 times 4, she didn't distribute the 3 to the 4. So that means she left the plus 4, and that is incorrect. So between lines 2 and 3, she made an error. All right, and that's it. That was the error. Number 24, again, a distributive property on both sides. So go ahead, do your loops, and bring down every bit of your answer so you can actually start to solve it. Okay, so we have 5 times x is 5x, 5 times negative 2 is negative 10, 2 times 10 is 20, 2 times x is 2x. So we have to get this smaller variable over to the larger variable. We have 2 terms on each side of the equal sign, so we know that we are ready to go, and we minus 2x on both sides. Okay. So 5x minus 2x is 3x, and we bring down the negative 10, we bring down that 20. We have a 2-step equation, and now we could just go about solving using inverse operations, getting that 10 over first, and they cancel. You have 3x equals 30. And there was no multiple choice for this one. This was like an open-ended question. Boy, if you get an open-ended question like this, this is pretty easy for that Regents x equals 10. As a Regents question, that's an easy one. All right, number 24, no multiple choice option here either. Another easy question. So we have variables on both sides. I check to see if there's 2 terms on each side. There are. We have to get those variables together. So it's 2 minus 2g minus 2g. I am going to cancel this because they cancel. 3 equals 5g minus 2g is 3g. And you bring down the minus 9. So we have plus 9. We have to get that 3g alone, and that's plus 9. Writing my 9s, and my 9s looked like a g, so I just fixed it. So this is 9, negative 9 and positive 9 cancel out. This right here, 3 plus 9 is 12, and that all equals 3g. All right. So we divide by 3 on both sides, and you get your answer of g equals 4. And that's it. And the last one here is a large question, but we are going to take it step by step. We have 3 We have to do distributive property. Let's work on the left side first. We have 3 times x, which is 3x. We have 3 times 1, which is 3. And I'm going to bring down that minus 5x. Okay, so this one right here is a little bit more difficult. You see this? Negative? It's distributing that negative inside to the inside, all of the terms inside that parentheses. It's like distributing a -1. Just think of it that way. So negative times positive 6 is a negative 6x. And look how tricky this is. This is negative times a negative is positive 7. So we have 3 terms on each side. So before moving things across and getting crazy, we have to combine the like terms. So we have 3x over here, and we have negative 5x over here. And I'm boxing them out, and I am going to combine them for negative 2x. They're on the same side. I could combine them. And I'm also going to combine the like terms that are over on the right side. So we have 12 plus 7, and we're combining those. I have 12 plus 7 for 19, and we have the negative 6x just dropped down. I'm going to bring this small. Now we have 2 terms on each side. We can concentrate on moving things across now. We have, I want to get the smaller variable over to the larger variable. So the smaller coefficient is negative 6. So I'm going to bring that over. And since I'm bringing the smaller over to the larger, it allows me to work in the positive. This cancels. We have 4x plus 3 equals 19. Okay, so we have minus 3 on both sides. That's a 2-step equation. You did a lot of work here for this. And let's see if we get that 1-step equation going. This is 4x equals 16. And there's the 1-step equation. You divide by 4. Divide by 4 on both sides. And you do have x equals 4 as your final answer. All right, and that is it. Hopefully that helped you out a little bit. See you next time.